I welcome you to Inovare. Yeah, this is where we innovate. This is the podcast where changes are made. If you're not growing, then you're dying. Innovation is the key to surviving. This is Inovare, where we ain't scared to make that change and create a new way. If you're ready to learn and sit back and just chill, it's about to get real. This is Inovare.
What's up, everybody, and welcome on into the Inovare podcast. I'm your host, Roy Edwards, and welcome on back, guys. If you're joining us for the first time, well, welcome. We believe in the law of reciprocity here. You're going to hear me say that probably 5,000 different times. So please like, share, subscribe. If you guys are here and returning, welcome back. And if you haven't shared and subscribed, I don't know what you're waiting for, but now's your chance. So, guys, we have a great guest on today. His name is Paul Beam. He is a proud veteran who served in the U.S. Marine Corps from 2000 to 2004. In 2013, Paul decided to make some changes, and he finished his education. And during his course of study, Paul founded the ManCamp in 2015, and he would later go on to found the True North organization in 2016. In 2017, Paul graduated from Concordia University, where he obtained a BA in religious education and psychology, which we're gonna get into that. He has since obtained credentials in life coaching, creates and instructs courses for men, hosts the True North podcast, speaks on vision, identity, purpose, and life change. He's also an ordained minister, which actually I am as well, so maybe we'll just go ahead and talk about that as well. But welcome on into the Inovare podcast, Paul Beam. What's up, my man? How are you?
Thanks for having me, brother. I'm good. I'm doing really good.
So
Appreciate you having me on today.
Yeah, dude, I'm pumped to have you here, man. And that's a mouthful that we just went over. So you've accomplished quite a good bit so far in your journey of life. And I'll start with your first sentence, if you don't mind, and that is your time in the Marines. So I've had a bunch of people who come on that are military people. I've had maybe 6 or 7 different guests that were military. And they all have a story to tell about the military or something that shaped them. But let's start there. What was your time like in the military, and what's your backstory?
Sure. Yeah. So we'll just start with the military because that'll make it a lot easier to go over my backstory. I could go over my childhood as well, and ultimately that leads to the Marine Corps. But I was in the Marine Corps from 2000 to 2004. Basically joined just as a way to prove myself to me and to kind of earn that title, I believe, that says I did something worthy. I believe that originally going into the Marine Corps, it was more selfish than it was service-oriented, although I believe that later it became more about the service part of it. Once I was in, had been through boot camp, started getting into my unit and really getting to know those that I was serving with. Just your mind kind of shifts, your heart kind of changes. So, but 2004, I was married at that time, had our first child. In 2001, once we had landed in Cherry Point, North Carolina, that's where I was stationed at. And of course, I was overseas for 9 months on 26 MU, the last part of my time in the Marine Corps. I was blessed. I was blessed enough that I didn't have to see too much crazy stuff while I was overseas. And I say that reluctantly because there are a lot of people. I mean, that's what I joined for, right? And I say that I was blessed. I guess what I should say is I was blessed that I didn't lose any limbs. I wasn't disabled. I didn't lose my life. I came back home to my family. And so to that degree, yes, I was certainly blessed. And then beyond that, 2004, got out of the Marine Corps, decided to head back to Texas, where I had no idea what I was going to do. And I just knew that I didn't feel like the Marine Corps was for me for 20 years, like I had originally set out to do. And so once I got home, I got into sales. I was in the oil field for a stint. I was in management for a stint. Yeah. And then I had my own auto detail and power washing business for a while. So there's quite a few things that I did. And of course, over the duration of that time, there was, my life was just kind of whimsical. I was kind of aimless, just wandering about, not really with any kind of destination in mind. Not really knowing who I was. Once you get out of the Marine Corps, once you get out of the military, and a lot of veterans can attest to this, it's, that's your identity while you're in, especially at such a young age, because they really shape you and form you. Once you go to boot camp, I mean, they break you down and build you up, and that becomes your identity. And so getting out when you're no longer serving, it's one of those things you're just kind of left trying to figure out who you are when you don't have mentors or anyone to kind of speak into your life. It can take some time, and certainly trial and error, without a doubt. And so that's the case for me. And I ended up, I was married for 10 years, ended up divorced in 2011. I had three children with my first wife. And then in 2013, moved to the Austin area. Things kind of started shifting in my mind and my heart. And I started attending school in 2014, decided to go ahead and use my GI Bill and finish out my degree. And so religious education, communication, and psychology, that's what I landed on. There's probably, I don't know if you've heard the statistics, but most people in the college realm, they end up changing their course of study 2 to 3 times over the course of their career. And that was certainly the case for me. So I didn't start out with communication, religious education, and psychology, but that's where I landed after years of thought and just kind of trying to figure out the direction that my life was headed and kind of the things that I felt I was supposed to be doing and the purpose that I was called to in life.
Yeah, I do. So the statistics on changing in college are pretty high. It's pretty crazy. I actually did a podcast on that and how majority of people, like, we're called to, and this will play directly into our conversation. I'm sure it is that, you have your purpose. Everyone, find out what you want to do with your life. And we're told that when we're like 17. What do you want to do with your life? What do you want to be when you grow up? Like I have a 10-year-old and I ask him now, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do? And it's not, I don't do it in a sense of like, know what your profession is, and more of just like, what are your general interests is what I'm trying to figure out so I can help him prepare. But
sure,
the world asks that question and they say, what do you want to be? And they mean it. When you're in high school, they say, what do you want to do? Because we're going to send you to a college based on that decision as a 16, 17-year-old child. We're going to direct your life down that path. And you get into college, and it's like the change rate is something like 60%, 60 to 70% of people change. And then when you get out of college, then it's something, it was still about half of people didn't know what they wanted to do, even though they just spent the last 4 years of their life studying for something that they thought that they wanted to do, and they switched fields. So how did you reach to those 3? Because those are pretty unique, man. What are the religious studies, communications, and psychology?
Sure. Yeah. So I think one of the major problems with going to college at such a young age is the fact that our minds haven't fully developed and matured, for the most part. I mean, you've got 16, 17, 18-year-olds in college, and especially when it comes to young men, they haven't fully developed. And beyond that, they just haven't had much life experience yet. I think that they're still trying to find their identity. And now this is I wouldn't say the majority of people how am I trying to say this? I would say the majority of young men, especially at that age, do not know who they are yet. They have not figured out quite who they are. They're still trying to figure out their identity. Now, there are those special cases where young men and young ladies will be raised in a wholesome family with parents that were raised in a wholesome family and can offer them advice and insights. And they're kind of beyond their years in regards to maturity. And so for me, I believe that I was even behind the curve on that. But fortunately, I was also in my 30s when I was a college student. And so I had already lived life. I had already been through a crazy childhood, crazy teenage life. I'd been through crazy stuff in the Marine Corps. And then I'd been through marriage and divorce and children. I'd been through all kinds of stuff and experienced so many different things. And so once I landed in college, it was a little bit easier for me. I feel like I had to just pick a course of study initially. And I knew that I wanted to help people. I knew that. And so I started out, I thought I was going to go into ministry, full-time ministry. And so I started out, I think it was like pastoral education or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then it switched over to, oh goodness, what was that second one? So anyway, it was another title that was in ministry. But then over the course of time, I started thinking, all right, well, I think what I really want to do is kind of help men start tapping into who they truly are. I want to kind of help them start peeling back the onion on, what their life has brought them to this point. Some of that's going to be emotional. Some of that's going to be spiritual. Some of that is going to be intellectual. We have all these components that make us up. And so I was thinking, well, psychology would actually be a good route to go so that I can start learning how our minds truly work. And then as far as the spiritual disciplines, the religious education, I just knew, okay, well, from my background, of course, I'm Christian. And so I look at everything from a biblical standpoint, biblical point of view. And I knew that I wanted to be able to help people understand better, these biblical concepts, these biblical principles, and help them roll that into who they are in life and how they function in life and the purpose that they're serving. And as far as communication, I just knew, who out there could not use a little bit of training in communications, right? I mean, whether it's digital communications, whether it's speaking, so on and so forth. Once we get out and we start promoting ourselves, once we get out and really start functioning in business and trying to make life happen and make a difference, you have to know these different avenues, these different tactics for communicating. And so for me, it was just simply taking all the stuff that I feel is a part of who I am and combining it into one, so that I could be better equipped to help men, tap into their identity and their purpose and ultimately living a more fulfilled life. And so I believe that's, as far as those three components, it took me a lot of years to figure that out. Like I said, I was well into my 30s. But those three, I knew that I could switch my degree plan one last time and I would be fulfilled. I would be okay with knowing I walked away with a bachelor's degree and those three things, and those would help propel me forward in everything that I'm doing, up to now. Yeah.
I have a similar bachelor's degree makeup. So mine is communication. So I've long been, extremely interested, I'll say, in the way people act, portray themselves, and communicate. And so a lot of the communication, this, you studied, is nonverbal, right? The way that we act, the way that we enunciate, the way that we, speak with our hands, right? Right now I'm like throwing my hands around, right? That's all part of communication. So that was a big part of me. I studied nonverbal communications. I got multiple books back here that are all about body language. And there was this book that I read when I was like, I think it was like 18, 19. It was called The Game by Neil Strauss. And he was like this pickup artist, right? And so what he always talked about, and like his whole thing was, you can reinvent yourself through these basic communication principles to portray yourself as more likable, attractable, trustworthy, etc., right? And it was all these different things that you could do. Now, he used it to pick up girls, but I read it because I wanted to try and read it to see how I could use it in everyday life. You know, it was like, okay, let's talk about these principles of standing up straight, you know, or speaking clearly, enunciating, using your hands, not putting your hands in your pocket, and kind of, you know what I mean? These ways that you can stand that will show interest, so people will perceive you as that you're actually paying attention to what is it they're saying, and you're not like staring off into the stars and stuff like that. So I was big on communication too, man. I was all about that. My other two were sports psychology. So you got one end of the spectrum. I have the sports side of things, which is mostly like how your mind reacts to like rehabilitation and challenges and actual force and competition. And then the third one was history. Not you know, you went the religious route, which I'm Christian as well, so I definitely read the good book. But history has long been part of my inner workings too, man. And all three of those, mine were by chance, kind of. It was just stuff that I was like interested in college and just to get myself out. But those three together have drastically helped me when I got into the business world. Mm-hmm. It was crazy the amount of skills that you pick up with in communication and psychology, those two alone, in your everyday workings and everyday whatever. You just getting out of bed the right way. Communication and psychology play a huge role in everything that you do every day. So that's pretty. I love those three topics, and dude, we could do a whole freaking podcast here for an hour just talking about those three.
Yeah, absolutely.
But tell me a little bit about. Let's get to that. Let's take it back a notch where you were just talked about how you wanted to help people, right? And so you said you wanted to help men. That was the whole purpose of you going into those three topics of education and to get out was to help people, right? And so when you're talking about helping people, I've heard you use a few different words and I have a couple of them here written down, right? I see purpose, I see life change, and I see identity. There's a couple other there that we'll touch on afterwards, but identity, purpose, and life change, right? Those are some big words. You know, with big definitions. Yeah. So sure. First off, what is purpose defined as you? When we talk about that you're going to help people find purpose, what is purpose defined by you?
Yeah, sure. So purpose ultimately is what one of the many things that we could have been created to do. And to your point earlier, purpose is not necessarily something that we find. We don't find purpose. We find our identity. Okay. We figure out, and when I say we find our identity, over time, as we mature, as we progress, as we evolve, whatever you want to call it, we begin to figure out who we are, who we truly are at the core, what our foundational principles are, our foundational values, the way we want to show up in the world, the things we want to do in life, the impact that we want to have, the legacy we want to build, so on and so forth. And from there, everything we do after we truly figure out who we are, then begins to turn into purpose. Then we can start to really say, okay, well, these are my interests. These are the things that bother me in life that I would like to, fix. There's so many different questions that we can ask when we're really starting to help people tap into their purpose. We'll use that, tap into their purpose. Okay. Now, I do believe that we cannot hold too many purposes because it's like anything else in life. When we try to balance, juggle, handle too many things in life, something starts to fall to the wayside. Something starts to lose our attention, and then we cannot truly excel at it. So I do believe that when we're tapping into purpose, we truly have to have just a couple of things that we are really focused on, that really fulfill us, but also make an impact in other people's lives. So I also believe, I'm of the belief that our purpose is not for our ultimate fulfillment. Our purpose is to edify and uplift the lives of those around us. and whatever that looks like. And that's different for everyone, especially when you start talking about, biblical principles. Scripture tells us that everyone has their own gifts. Everyone is a different part of the body functioning together as one body, so somebody's a finger, it sounds silly, right? But if that finger is not doing its job, well, then we don't function together as a whole as effectively as we possibly could. So we all have our purpose. We all have our function in life. It's up to us to really start figuring out who we are, what our gifts are, what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are, what our passions are, what our life story is, and what we've learned from our life story, the strengths that we have from everything that we've been through, everything from victory to adversity. All of that has created us and shaped us and honed us into who we are. And it's up to us to really latch on to something we feel is going to be fulfilling. Because at the end of the day, if it's not fulfilling, I feel like we will lose interest in it. But also there's that balance, right? Like it's not just fulfilling for us, but it's edifying and uplifting and life-changing for those around us, because ultimately that's what we're here to do, is make a difference in the world. And that is as selfless as it could be.
So you just tapped on a few different things there that I'm gonna unpackage. So one you said was that fulfillment, right? In finding purpose, there's fulfillment in yourself, right? Like, and so I do subscribe to the fact that you can't find, and I use that in quotation marks, you can't find your purpose because it's not lost. That's my view on purpose, is that generally when you're finding something, that's because you didn't know where it was. Mm-hmm. And so our purpose, to me, the way that I see purpose, is that it was designed for us prior to our birth. So it's not something that we cannot, it's not something we can just find, because it's not lost. It's there from the time we were born, and it'll be there until the time we die. And it's just whether or not we discover the fact that it is, whatever it is, right? It'll always be there. We might not necessarily know that we're using it or we're living it out, right? But you mentioned a key word there in terms of fulfillment, because there are things that I might think are just freaking awesome, and I could do them for hours, and no boredom, just like totally, I could do it all day, every day, and it just brings me great joy. That exact same task to you could say, my God, Roy, how can you do this? This is the most boring shit I've ever done. And so to me, that's kind of the guiding light in terms of your identity, who you are as a person. And then the more you know your identity, the clearer your purpose, helping others with that purpose, becomes. And so how do you talk about, because you just unpackaged a lot there when you're talking about fulfillment. And so what is the findings of fulfillment? Like, how do you follow fulfillment? Like, are there certain ways where you're like, okay, this feels good, I should find more of that, kind of a thing? Or what's the roadmap to purpose through fulfillment for you?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. And that is something that we could probably, we could dig pretty deep on that in the episode in of itself. But to me, I think when people are seeking fulfillment, right? Like, we're all seeking something. We all want to feel better. We all want to feel this sense of peace, this sense of joy. We want to feel like we're not walking around with a hole in our chest. And so I believe that ultimately, when people begin to operate out of their true identity and start fulfilling the purpose that they latch onto, that hole that was once in them, where they were constantly searching, they're constantly looking around in life, trying to figure out, man, what's next? Man, it's just, I don't know. Something's got to change. There's got to be something different or better out there. That desire no longer exists. It's like you wake up every day, even if, because some days are going to suck, mm-hmm. right? But that doesn't mean we can't be fulfilled. So you wake up every day knowing, all right, I'm going to my office. I'm going to record a couple podcast episodes with some really awesome dudes. and I'm going to figure out how to create another course, knowing that it's going to change men's lives. I'm going to get ready for my next event that I host, knowing that it's going to change men's lives, and not only change men's lives, but change their marriages and change their families and then change their communities, because we start helping them, you know? And so for me, like when I wake up, I'm like, I love doing this. I love being on this call with you right now, just going back and forth, me learning from you, you learning from me, the audience listening and learning, hopefully whatever they're going to learn from this conversation that we're having. To me, this is fulfilling. I look forward to this. Now, do I wake up every morning saying, yippity yippity, I get to jump on another call today? No, because there's just some days that we're human, right? And we're like, man, no, I got a call. I got to do this. I got to do that. But that fulfillment is still there. It's still, so basically I'm not looking for what's next in life.
Yeah.
Like I may not be looking forward to the day all the time, but I'm not looking for what's next. I'm not trying to search and find something that is going to make me joyful and peaceful and fulfilled.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense.
No, absolutely, man. And you hit some key points there, whereas I feel like if you find who you're supposed to become and your purpose, and, you know, all of a sudden you're going to wake up and it's all going to be unicorns and rainbows, and every day is going to be the greatest day ever. You know, you see all that crap posted all over Instagram where it's like, find your purpose and you'll never work a day in your life. No, man, like you're going to have to put in the same hard work, probably more. You'll probably work harder than you've ever worked before once you find it, because you're going to have that burning in you where you're like, I can't go to sleep because I have so much more that I have to accomplish. And you're going to have so much more things to do, and you're going to be so much clearer in what it is that you want to become ultimately. And the work that you're going to do is going to skyrocket.
Yeah.
And I feel like people miss that. You know, people think that, oh, well, once I find purpose, then I'm just jump roping. That's all it is. I'm just out here having fun,
Easy.
right. Life will be easy. Whereas I think it goes the other route, man. Like I think that you find your purpose, and life just got hard because you got a lot more work to do in front of you, kind of a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I always tell guys that I'm coaching is my life was easy until I decided I wanted to be a different man, until I decided that I wanted to stop living a selfish life and start living a selfless life. My life was very easy because it was all about me.
Right. Yeah.
And then when I decided I wanted to change, when I figured out who I truly was and that my life was not just about me, life is difficult. It gets very difficult at times. But that's okay because it's also very fulfilling. And I know some people may not understand that. It's like, how can those two exist together? Well, it can. I don't know how to explain that exactly right now. I would need a little more time to think on that, but I do know that they can coexist. Adversity and fulfillment can coexist.
Absolutely. 100%, man. I think adversity, and we all have that struggle, whatever it is, right? There's something that either happened to us, which I'm of the thought process that nothing really happens to us. It happens for us. But there is something that happened in our lives that has transformed us either to a way of thinking or to a way of being. And for some people it's physical, for others it's mental, for, there's lots of different things that it could be. And that adversity will build you closer and nudge you, kind of kick you over to where you're supposed to be in terms of purpose. If you get too out of line, you're opening up the wrong doors, you're running down the wrong path, you're going to get a swift drop kick right back onto your alignment path of where it is that you're supposed to be. And that can be seen as adversity, that can be seen as troubles, that could be seen as tons of different things, right? But ultimately it makes up who you are, how you see the world, how you see yourself, and what leads you into whatever is the next .0, right? In tech speak, you have your applications, you have 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, you got your upgrades, right? adversity leads to upgrades, as far as I'm
Absolutely.
concerned. And
Absolutely.
So let's get into that. Your thought on those other words that I didn't mention, and one of which is vision. Now, first off, how do you define vision? And then before the show, you had talked about how vision plays into purpose. So, what is vision, and then how does vision ultimately play into purpose?
Sure. Yeah. So our vision is going to flow from our identity, without a doubt. We have, once again, identity is the foundational component. Knowing who we are, knowing what our values are, knowing that everything we do in life is going to flow from that. And so from that also flows our vision. And before we really start pursuing our purpose, we've also got to really take hold of our vision. We've got to cast vision, right? And so the Bible says, without a vision, the people perish. And now we could go through this scripture, and it doesn't directly relate to having a vision of the future, right? They're more talking about vision being the truth of scripture, the truth of the word. But if you really continue to follow that scripture, it really does lead you back around to having a vision for your life. Okay. So it's super important that we understand that we must cast vision for the future. So in other words, I know who I am as Paul Beam. I know what I feel my creator has called me to do. I feel that my creator has called me to challenge, encourage, and equip men to rise up and be the absolute best men that they could be and fulfill their purpose. And I believe that that in and of itself is a catalyst for changing the world. We see the state that the world is in right now. And so for me, that is a grand vision for doing my service and serving men in that manner. My grand vision is that the world will be changed, because I know that ultimately that is what our creator would want, is for us to all live unified rather than divided. Mm-hmm. And so that is just an example of mine. And so other people may have a different vision, and that's okay, but it's super important that people say, all right, my life's work is going to produce what? So the purpose that I'm fulfilling, it's going to do what in the world? What impact is it going to make? And from there, every individual has to fill in that blank. I cannot do it for them. I could do the work with them to help lead them to what their grand vision would be. But ultimately, they have to fill in that blank. And some of it is just naming it, right? It's just saying, look, I'm going to do X, and I know it's going to produce Y and Z. And that is exactly what I want. And that can come there again from our passions. That can come from the gifts that we've been given. It can come from the talents that we've been given. It can come from the knowledge that we acquired through the years, or the skill sets, so on and so forth. There's so many different ways we can get to that. But ultimately, vision is us being able to allow our purpose and our identity to really help us see into the future of the impact we would like to make in the world.
And so how much of that is manifestation? How much of that is do you subscribe to manifestation first off?
Yeah, well, so I have not studied, honestly, have not studied manifestation, exactly what that means. This is what I hear when I hear the word manifestation, and when I see gurus talking about manifestation, it's almost like a name it and claim it type mentality. It's like, if I visualize this enough every morning, I meditate on it every day, I'm talking about it, yada, 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 it's just going to appear for me. Well, that's not the case. Life doesn't work like that. But we can meditate on it to the degree that it sets us into motion. And then we create a plan, and then we execute on the plan. And then what we have envisioned begins to manifest, right? It begins to show up. But it's not because we just put it in our mind and focused on it so much that it came to us. It's because our thoughts went to our heart, and our heart started to activate the mind in a manner that made us create a plan that we could execute on. And so for me, manifestation and vision in that matter is more about I'm going to visualize this and then I'm going to create a plan.
Mm-hmm.
And something inside of me is going to be triggered and activated to actually start working toward whatever it is that I have visualized, whatever the vision is. Okay. And so not only that, but who do I have to become in order to attain that? So if I'm wanting something in life, who do I have to become in order to get that? And so to me, it's not about just, and once again, I'm not an expert on manifestation, but manifestation for a lot of people, the vibe I get is that if I think about it enough, it's just going to appear.
Right.
Whereas I don't believe that's the case. I believe that if I think about it enough, I'll start to do everything I need to do to get to that point. I'll start becoming who I need to become in order to get to that point. You know, the Bible even talks about the Bible talks about meditation, right? Finally, brothers, focus on what is pure, what is right, what is holy, just, so on and so forth. It tells us meditate on these things, right? And so it also says that do not be conformed to the patterns of the world, but be transformed by the renewing of our mind. So what does that tell us? There's nothing new. Like people saying, well, you think about things, you meditate on things, you visualize things. Well, that's nothing different than Scripture's telling us. Scripture's telling us that we become transformed by what? The renewing of our mind. So when we start to think on things, when we feed our mind the right things, the things that are pure, holy, just, right, the truth-driven things, it starts to sink into our heart and it starts becoming a part of who we are. And then we start living that way. And so anyway, to me, manifestation is one of those things that it's just, it requires action. And so do I believe in manifestation? Maybe, I guess, to a degree, but I believe it requires action.
Absolutely. So I'll give you one more. So you pulled some great verses there, and I'll give you one more that's my point too, in biblical speak when my definition of manifestation. And so that's Matthew 7:7. And so I have this posted all over my socials. And so Matthew 7:7 is ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find, knock and the door will be open to you. So to me, that is manifestation. That's ask, you have to speak it, right? Mm-hmm. Physically say what it is that you want, whatever it is. Seek, okay, seek is in order to go seek and look for something, you got to know what you're looking for, and that is a part of action. I think of that as in terms of planning, right? Mm-hmm. Knock and the door will be open. Well, that is about as clear of an action as you can possibly get, right? But that's the last part of it. So I break that down with my kids all the time, where I say, think it, see it, do it. But you can't just think it, see it. There's do it at the end of that. You know, I heard a saying the other day was Goya. So first you manifest, you think about it, whatever it is you want to do. People want to put together vision boards. You go right ahead, buddy. That's not for me, but I know people out there who do vision boards, right? You do all that stuff. But after that, it's Goya. Get off your ass. You know, I don't know how many I don't know how many businesses have been built or things have been achieved or purpose is found from sitting on a couch thinking about how great you're going to be.
Yeah, no.
There's the other step.
It doesn't work that way.
No.
Yeah.
So I love those scriptures you brought out, but I'll drop Matthew 7:7 on there.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, absolutely. So it's like it says to what do you say? Ask,
seek, and knock. Yeah.
Yeah, and so asking is verbal, seeking is visual, and then knocking is that physical part. It's like you said, getting up and actually knocking doors down and searching for it. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, you need to go out and do. You can't just think and see, right? You got to get off the bench. People who are on the bench. If we're going to bring this into sports, you can think about a play, you can study a play, you can see the plays unfold. But if your ass is sitting on the bench, you're not doing anything. That doesn't mean that you're not thinking about it and seeing it. But you need to get off the bench, get off and start doing, right? And in your life, don't sit on the bench, right? Get out and do. Get out, whatever it is. It can, and that's where people get tripped up, I think, is that they think in terms of, in doing, I have to do it all in one day. I know my purpose, I see my vision, and now I got to go do it today. It's like, no, this is a process. Right. This is going to be a thing, you know? You got the rest of your life to try and figure out how to get this done. So if somebody comes to you and they say, Paul, I think I know my purpose. I think I got my vision, which I like that you said what. A lot of people focus on why. I like the what. What are you going to do? Okay, I understand, know your why, sure, whatever, but what? What are you going to do? What difference is it going to make? So I come to you, Paul, I know my purpose. I see my vision, and now what do I do? Do I go try to fix it this weekend? I fulfill my purpose in a 3-day weekend. We got a 3-day weekend coming up. Do I just go do it over this 3-day weekend? What's the first step there?
Yeah, great. That's a good question. So no, it's not going to happen in a weekend. I've been working on mine for 6 years now, and my grand vision is still kind of out there. The other thing I'd like to mention is I think it evolves over time. Yeah. We evolve as human beings. We get better. We learn things. We're constantly being refined. And I believe that our vision can evolve as well. This season of my life may be about me serving men, but there may be a season of my life that comes along that changes. It changes. And my purpose now is shifting. I kind of take, the fork in the road, and instead of staying on that path, I feel like, all right, it's time for me to move into something else. And so there's always that chance. But as far as really executing on purpose, I think once we have the vision, once we understand our purpose, once we understand our identity, it truly is about sitting down and game planning. It's like, okay, what are you going to do with that? You have your vision, you know your purpose, you know your identity. Let's look at the vision and figure out how you're going to get there, okay? In order for me to do X, I must do A, B, and C, because I got to make it through the alphabet, right? Let's just use the alphabet. Z is the end state. Well, we have to start at A, and we have to connect all the dots. But that starts with a plan. It's like, okay, let's break this down. We're going to reverse engineer it. So let's just use numbers, for example. If my goal is to reach 100 men this year, well, then how many men do I need to reach in each quarter? Mm-hmm. So that 25 men a quarter, right? Mm-hmm. Yep. And then I'm going to break that down into 12 weeks. So how many men do I need to reach each week? Okay, boom, I have my number. How am I going to do that now? And am I going to cold call? Am I going to make it a point that every day when I'm out at Starbucks, I'm going to intentionally walk up to a guy and just kind of start probing him, introduce myself, say, hey, man, tell him who I am, but then just ask about his life. What is my plan? And a lot of that is going to fall on our gifts. It's going to fall on our passions. It's going to fall on our strengths. And the approach is going to be tailor suited to the individual person that is actually beginning to execute on that plan to reach their grand vision. And it's all about a plan. At the end of the day, it's all about reverse engineering your vision and creating a plan that you can begin to execute on one day at a time. And a lot of people listening to your podcast may have heard of Atomic Habits, right? Mm-hmm. And Atomic Habits talks about 1% every day, just 1%. We're not looking for 10, 20, 30, 50, 1% difference every day. If we can do 1% better every day, we're making progress. Over time, we're going to get the compounded interest on that. Over time, we will see the progress. Over time, we'll begin to see the puzzle come to its completion.
Yeah. And the key point to that 1%, which there's a 1 in 60 rule, which was actually developed by pilots, which I've talked about on numerous podcasts. But the 1% rule, right? That 1% change. I think the key area there is change. You're doing something different. In order to get 1% better, you have to do something different. You can't go out. I believe it was Trevor Cowley who we had on the show, and he used the example of fishing. You can't go out to the same fishing hole in the same spot using the same bait every single day and expect different results.
Yeah.
That's ludicrous. That's not change. That's not 1% better. You're doing the same damn thing every day. That's not 1%. 1% better or 1% change. You're doing something different. You are changing. They might be small changes, but you're not doing the same damn thing every single day. And dude, reverse engineering, you're speaking my language now, man. Like I believe in epics. Those are your big shots, the journey that you're about to go on. You could call them purpose for a year or whatever it is that you want to accomplish. I believe epics can roll. I don't believe in resolutions. And then you reverse engineer that thing down, man. And I break them down into 2-week intervals of measurables that I'm going to reflect on, I'm going to absorb. And then those 2-week stories, I'm getting technical now, I know. All my agile people are out there like, yeah. And then I break them down into daily tasks. And I write them down, man. I got a planner. I got a planner right here that I write down all my tasks. And I just write them all down with my pink pen. And at the end of the day, check them off. And if I haven't checked every single one of them off, then I don't go to bed. That's how I work, man. Well, dude, I love this conversation. I've enjoyed the hell out of it. And so how can somebody find the True North podcast, and how can somebody get in touch with you?
Sure. Yeah. Just True North Man podcast. It's, just search it on iTunes, Spotify, all the major podcasting platforms. We're on there. As far as social media, we're on Facebook under True North Man. We have our broader page, which anyone can join or follow. And then we have our private group as well, the True North Man private group. So you can find us on there. And of course, my personal profile is just Paul Beam 81, I believe. Paul Beam, you'll find me. Not hard to find. On Facebook, and then on Instagram, it's Paul Beam Official. And also we have True North Man, true.north.man on Instagram as well, where we try to stay fairly consistent over there. Instagram is not as good as Facebook. We've gotten the Facebook down pretty well. We are now moving into Instagram and trying to really stay consistent with that as well. But yeah, we can be found on both those platforms for sure. True North Man podcast. And then, hey, we have our ManCamp events every spring, every fall. That's on our website, true-north-ministries.com. It's soon to change, but I will not give you that address yet because we'll just direct that to the new one, the old one to the new one once we launch the new one.
Nice. Dude, I love it, man. I love what you're doing. I love the mission. I love your purpose. Keep following it, dude. You're crushing it over there, man. I love it.
Yeah, appreciate it, Roy. Same with you, brother.
Well, guys, hope you enjoyed the show. Go listen to the True North Man podcast. Go hit him up, hit him a like and review. Tell him that Inovare sent him, and go listen. Better yourselves, guys. That's a hell of a podcast over there. And if while you're at it, while you're liking and subscribing and reviewing my man Paul, do it for Inovare too, guys. Yeah. That's what we're here for. So. Guys, InovarePodcast.com. That's where you can find us. You listen to all of our podcasts, iTunes, Spotify. We're on like 13 different platforms and YouTube. If you catch our Facebook Lives every 4 o'clock, which is possibly what you're listening to right now, go ahead and like and share that out with your followers so they can get a taste of this too. And until next time, guys, see you.